For every German Tiger tank destroyed, the Allies lost 5 M4 Shermans. 5. Think about what that means. For every single victory, 25 of your men might not come home, and you are inside one of those tanks. You can hear the shells of your comrades bouncing off the enemy's hide, uselessly. This was the grim reality for the crews of the American M4 Sherman. A tank produced in staggering numbers, over 49,000 rolled off assembly lines. It was mechanically reliable, a masterpiece of mass production. But on the battlefields of France, it was earning a series of terrifying nicknames. The German tankers called it the Tommy Cooker, because of what happened when a shell got through. But the name that stuck, the one whispered by its own crews, was the Ronson, after a popular brand of cigarette lighter. Their slogan? Lights up the first time, every time. A piece of battlefield humor so dark it could only be born from desperation. The official story was simple. The Sherman used a gasoline engine, making it prone to fires. A simple, fatal design flaw. But here's the part nobody talks about. Post-war analysis by the U.S. Army's own ballistics research lab found something else entirely. They studied hundreds of destroyed tanks, both Allied and German, and their data revealed a shocking truth. The Sherman didn't catch fire any more frequently than the diesel-powered German Panther tank. So, if the Ronson myth wasn't entirely true, why were so many Sherman crews being burned alive? The answer wasn't about the fuel, it was about the ammunition. The Sherman's thin armor, only 51 millimeters at the front, couldn't stop the German shells. When a high-velocity round from a Tiger's 88mm cannon smashed through the hull, it wasn't just a hole. It was a superheated jet of molten metal and shrapnel flying through the crew compartment at thousands of meters per second. This inferno would instantly ignite the stored propellant in their own ammunition. The tank didn't just burn, it detonated. The crews knew this. They knew their main gun couldn't reliably kill a Tiger from the front. They had to get closer, into the kill zone. They were told to use speed and numbers to overwhelm the enemy. But you are not a statistic. You are a man in a steel box, watching your friends' tanks explode one by one. You need a weapon that can level the playing field, a gun that can kill from a distance. And across the English Channel, the British were working on a secret solution, a radical modification to the Sherman. They took their most powerful anti-tank gun, the monstrous 17-pounder, and found a way to cram it into the Sherman's small turret. It was a Frankenstein's monster of a tank, a stopgap, a desperate gamble. They called it the Firefly, and it could kill a Tiger from over a kilometer away. But what the German tankers didn't know, and what its own crews were about to discover, was that this new power came at a terrible, visible price. Terrible, visible price was measured in steel. 76 inches of it, to be exact, the extra length of the 17-pounder's barrel jutting out from the Sherman's turret. A dead giveaway. To a German gunner scanning the hedgerows of Normandy, that long, thin profile screamed, "Danger." It was an engraved invitation to every Panther and Tiger commander on the front. Kill this one first. The problem was, cramming that gun into a turret designed for a much smaller weapon was considered mechanically impossible. The official documents from the Ministry of Supply said so, but desperation doesn't listen to committees. The Ordnance QF 17-pounder was a monster. Its 76.2 millimeter shell left the barrel at nearly 900 meters per second. The recoil was immense, a full 40 inches of violent rearward force. In the cramped space of a Sherman turret, and that recoil would slam the breech into the radio set and quite possibly the loader's head. So, what do? Here's where the story turns from a government project to a tale of two brilliant engineers, Major George Brighty and W.G.K. Kilburn. Working at the Lulworth Armored Fighting Vehicle School in early 1943, they looked at the problem sideways. Literally. They took the entire gun, the breech, the recoil mechanism, and rotated it 90 degrees. So it would recoil horizontally, not vertically. Think about that. You can't just turn a cannon on its side. Everything had to be redesigned. The loading tray, the firing controls, the cradle that held it. To make space, they cut a hole in the back of the turret and welded on an armored box, just to house the radio. There was no room for the bow machine gunner anymore. So he was removed. His space was now filled with ammunition. They redesigned the recoil cylinders to be shorter, more powerful. It was a brutal, ugly, brilliant piece of battlefield engineering. And the official channels in London initially wanted nothing to do with it. This wasn't an approved program. This was a skunk works project, born from the blood and fire of combat reports. The records show that the first successful test firing of this hybrid tank, codenamed Firefly, took place in November 1943. But the gun was only half the solution. You still need a shell that can kill a tiger. The standard 17-pounder armor-piercing round was good, but the British had a secret weapon, a projectile so advanced it was years ahead of its time. It was called APDS, Armor-Piercing Discarding Sabot. Imagine a tiny, incredibly dense tungsten dart, much smaller than the gun's barrel, encased in a lightweight aluminum shell. When fired, the shell guides the dart down the barrel at immense speed. The moment it exits, the aluminum casing, the sabot, falls away, leaving only the tungsten dart to fly towards the target at over 1,200 meters per second. That's 40% faster than the standard shot. It hit with such focused kinetic energy, it didn't explode. It simply punched through the tiger's 100-millimeter thick frontal armor like it was cardboard. The crew would never know what hit them, but the British knew the Germans were not fools. They would quickly learn to recognize that long barrel. So a directive was issued from the 21st Army Group headquarters. A curious one. It ordered Firefly crews to paint the front half of their gun barrels white on the underside, and dark green on the top. From a distance, this countershading was supposed to create an optical illusion, a false shadow, making the 17-pounder look like the standard, much shorter 75-millimeter gun. Did it work? Most veterans will tell you it didn't. The Germans learned to count the bogey wheels or simply look for the massive muzzle brake. The Firefly was a marked tank. By June 1944, the invasion of Europe was imminent. General Montgomery's own analysis demanded at least one Firefly in every troop of 4 Shermans. The production lines ran hot, but they only managed to convert around 340 Shermans by D-Day. 340 tanks. To face thousands of German panzers dug into the French countryside. The numbers just didn't add up. And as the landing craft doors dropped on the beaches of Normandy, a chilling question hung in the air for Allied command. With so few of these wonder weapons available, would they even make a difference? Would they even make a difference? Those 340 tanks against an entire army? The answer came just 1 week after D-Day, and it was a brutal, definitive yes, but not in the way you think. The battle wasn't fought on open plains. It was fought here, in the Bocage country of Normandy, a claustrophobic maze of sunken lanes, ancient hedgerows, and tiny fields. The hedgerows were not simple bushes. They were dense earthen walls, 10 feet high, tangled with roots and stone for 1,000 years. A perfect place for an ambush, a terrible place for a tank. On June 13, 1944, near the town of Villers-Bocage, SS Captain Michael Wittmann, Germany's most celebrated tank ace, saw his opportunity. He was commanding a single Tiger tank. In front of him, a long column of the British 7th Armored Division, the famed Desert Rats, was halted, exposed. And here's where it gets difficult to read. In the next 15 minutes, Wittmann single-handedly destroyed 14 British tanks, 15 personnel carriers, and 2 anti-tank guns. One man, one tank. The British advance was shattered. The official reports from the 7th Armored are strangely quiet about the specifics. They mention a fierce counterattack. They don't mention that one vehicle caused most of the damage. Why? Because you don't want your own troops to know that the enemy has a weapon that seemingly cannot be stopped. Wittmann's rampage was eventually halted. His Tiger was disabled, not by a Firefly, but by a standard Sherman firing a 6-pounder shell into its vulnerable rear drive sprocket. A lucky shot, but the legend was born. The Tiger was invincible from the front. And now, think about this from the German perspective. And you have a tank that is untouchable, and then, a few days later, you see something new. You see a Sherman with that impossibly long gun. You've been told it's just another Tommy Cooker. Your gunner takes aim from 800 meters, a distance you know is safe. The shot is perfect, but then you see a flash from its barrel, and the world explodes. This is the moment everything changed. German battlefield reports from mid-June 1944 begin to fill with confusion and fear. They describe their Panthers and Tigers, tanks with over 100 millimeters of frontal armor, being penetrated cleanly from the front, from ranges they previously considered safe. The APDS tungsten round wasn't just piercing the armor. It was creating a storm of superheated metal inside the crew compartment. There was no fire, no explosion, just a quiet, instantaneous death for everyone inside. The Tiger crews had a word for it. Ein Klopfen, a knock, the gentle tap of the tungsten dart just before it tore your world apart. The psychological impact was immense, far greater than the 340 Fireflies should have had. A new order was issued by German command, trickling down to every Panzer crew on the Western Front. It was simple. It was direct. If you see a Sherman with a long gun, kill it first, before all others. The Firefly became a priority target. The camouflage paint, the attempt to create a false shadow on the barrel. It was useless. German gunners were not fooled. They learned to look for the massive muzzle brake. They learned to look for the different spacing of the bogey wheels. They learned to hunt. And suddenly, being the crew of a Firefly became the most dangerous job in the Allied Army. You had the best gun on the battlefield. You could kill anything you could see, but everyone could see you, and they were all aiming at you. The very weapon designed to even the odds had just painted a giant target on your back. It gave you the power to kill a Tiger, yes, but it also cut your own life expectancy in half. And the Allied High Command had the numbers to prove it. Yes, but it also cut your own life expectancy in half. The British Army's Operational Research Group kept meticulous records. Their analysis from Normandy is chilling. The loss rate for a standard Sherman tank was 3.6% per operation. For a Firefly, it was 7.1%, nearly double. You read that correctly. Simply by being in the tank with the better gun, your chances of dying were almost twice as high. Think about what that means for the crew. You are the designated giant killer, the one your troop commander relies on to stop the monster. But every German gunner from 800 meters away is looking past your comrades. They are looking for you, for that long barrel, for that distinctive muzzle brake. You are both the hunter and the most hunted man on the battlefield. To understand this, you have to be inside the tank. On August 8, 1944, you are Trooper Joe Ekins, a gunner in the Northamptonshire Yeomanry. It's day 3 of Operation Totalize, a massive push south of Caen. The air is thick with dust and the smell of diesel. You're moving across an open field near the village of Saint-Aignan de Cramonil. Suddenly, your commander's voice crackles in your headset. Movement. Woods, 1,200 yards. And then you see them. 3 tigers emerging from the trees like predators. And leading them is the most feared tank commander of the war, SS Captain Michael Whitman. You don't know this, of course. You just see the tank that has haunted your dreams. Your commander, Sergeant Gordon, gives the order. You traverse the turret, the gears whining. The world shrinks to the view through your narrow periscope. Your heart pounds against your ribs. The first shot misses. The tiger turns its thick frontal armor towards you. A second shot from your troop bounces off. Useless. Now it's your turn. The range is 800 yards. You fire. The Firefly rocks back with a violent crack. You see the tracer arc across the field and hit. A flash on the tiger's hull. It stops. A second shot. This one hits the engine compartment. Smoke begins to pour out. Then a catastrophic explosion. The Tiger's massive 12-ton turret is blown 50 feet into the air, spinning before crashing back to Earth. The entire crew is gone. Instantly, in the next few minutes, you destroy 2 more Tigers, 3 kills in under 12 minutes. The German attack is broken. But here is the part nobody tells you in the official histories. You had no idea you had just killed Michael Whitman, the Tiger Ace. It was just another tank, another threat, another moment of terror you were lucky to survive. The identity of who fired the fatal shot was debated for decades. The Canadians claimed it. The Air Force claimed it. The truth was buried in battlefield reports. For Joe Ekins, there was no medal, no immediate recognition. There was only the ringing in his ears, the acrid smoke filling the turret, and the sight of the next target. He was just a man doing his job, a job that required him to face death every single day. He survived the war. He went home and became a factory worker. But for the rest of his life, whenever he closed his eyes, he would be back in that field, staring through a periscope, with the ghost of a tiger in his sights. Ghost of a tiger in his sights. It wasn't just for Joe Ekins. It haunts our memory of the war itself. We remember the tiger as an invincible predator, a legend of steel and firepower. But the official histories often leave out the most important details. And here's where the story gets twisted. The Tiger One was a masterpiece of engineering. It was also a logistical nightmare. It broke down constantly. It consumed 530 liters of fuel for every 100 kilometers on roads. Its complex transmission often failed. And here is the number that changes everything. Germany built just 1,347 of them. In total. Now compare that to the 49,000 Shermans that rolled off American assembly lines. You don't need to be a general to do that math. The war wasn't won by a handful of superior machines. It was won by thousands of good enough ones. The Sherman wasn't a death trap. It was reliable, easy to repair in the field. Its crews could keep it running. While Tiger crews often had to abandon their perfectly good tanks simply because they ran out of fuel or a gear stripped. So why does the myth of the invincible Tiger persist? Why is the Sherman remembered as the Ronson? Perhaps because a single, terrifying dragon is a better story than an army of ants. But the Firefly changed that story. It wasn't just a tank. It was a myth slayer. Its true power wasn't just the 17-pounder gun or the tungsten dart. Its true power was psychological. For the first time, Allied crews knew they could kill the dragon. And for the first time, the dragon knew it could die. That long barrel was a symbol, a promise. It told you that ingenuity could answer brutality, and that a few engineers working in secret, like George Brighty and W.G.K. Kilburn, could change the course of a battle. The Firefly was a desperate improvisation, a battlefield solution born from necessity. It was ugly, it was cramped, and it painted a target on the back of every man inside it. But it worked. It leveled the playing field with a single, piercing shot. A weapon is a tool. It has no morality of its own. It simply provides an answer to the question it was designed to solve.